Good day and welcome to yet another interesting, impactful, short webinar that is going to really be so unique for our stone and pulp fruit industries. I'm Natasha Bejnath-Pillay. I think you know me by now. And if you need any further resources, you're welcome to just hop onto our email, either Lindy at hortgrow.co.za or myself at Hortgrow, or even there's a suite of resources on our website, the Footprint webpage. Today, a lot of our sustainability resources and other webinars are on the website as well, and you're welcome to dabble into that. Today's one is quite unique because we've had a chance to look at how we can improve our webinars and how we can reach you and make the information a little more palatable and easy. So today's one is really unique because it's half in English and half in Afrikaans, which you're going to find quite interesting. So today's discussion is probably one that is going to be quite important for us in terms of market access and compliance. And I think the looming 12th of August 2026 deadline on the document of conformity and the technical document that needs to accompany any kinds of packed palm and stone fruit into the EU has been a long discussion that we've been having since last year already. But this compliance is here. It's less than a month from now. We will definitely have to have our compliance sorted out with the technical document and our declaration of conformity. So all of this technical information, we will go through it step by step with you. Mariana will go through a wonderful Afrikaans presentation, which is adapted from an EU commissioned or funded program, the Agri-Info program, that has got all the requirements on the regulations. We do understand that the packaging and packaging waste regulations from the EU is not easy to understand and comprehend. So every effort has been made to help you in this regard. And the resources are put together, especially for you. So I hope you really have the time to look at the resources that's on our website, ask questions wherever you need information, etc. So these documents, I know it sounds like a laborious task right now, but we will be here every step of the way so that we can hold our market access and help our palm and stone fruit industry along the way. And it's not just requirements that are needed just now for the 12th of August 2026 deadline. From my end, I would just like to say thank you to Agri-Info and CoLead for all the resources and the information we have. And that has been a huge support to us. We have met with recyclers and we've met with exporters and pack houses. And the questions that came through has been really, really important for us to get this webinar together for you. You probably know Dr. Mariana Jooste. She's not a new face in the webinar. We've had her before. And she is the post-harvest research manager at Hortgrow. And she's been very instrumental in us navigating this space of the requirements, the EU requirements. So Mariana will be summarizing some of the key points of Agri-Info's presentation that they had done, and it includes everything about the PPWR, but she summarized it, and she's put it in Afrikaans for us very kindly, and it's summarized just for our palm and stone fruit industry. So if there are certain things that are not in here, it's because we've curated it especially for our DFI. Afterwards, I will take you through the template and the annexures of the EU PPWR, and I'll go through that quite quickly. Everything is on the website. It's easy for you to understand. I will show you where to access it, where to get it, and then we'll have a question and answer session towards the end of the webinar. It is a short webinar, but towards the end, we will see if there are any questions, relevant questions for this discussion, and we'll delve into that. Without further ado, I'd love to hand over to Mariana. She's put the presentation together for you, and you're welcome to put any questions on the chat. So I'll be here, but I will speak to you in a bit about the template and the annexures. Over to you.
Baie dankie Natasha, ek waardeer dit. Ja, soos Natasha gesê het, hierdie aanbieding is vertaal van een wat CoLead vir ons onlangs aangebied het. En ons het besluit dit is eintlik baie lekker inligting om met die industrie te deel. En toe was daar ook baie navraag van die bedryf af wat gevra het, asseblief kan ons dit in Afrikaans doen. So ons het toe besluit ons gaan hierdie aanbieding vir julle in Afrikaans gee. So Ja, ek sien hier's nog iemand wat graag wil bywoon. So kom ons begin. Kan julle my share geval? Ons kyk gou weer.
There we go.
Daar's hy. Goed, kom ons begin. Soos ek gesê het, hierdie aanbieding is oorspronklik deur Axel Rupert gedoen. Sy is 'n deskundige by Co-Lead op die EU verpakkingsregulasies. So, as ons kyk na die verpakking wat alles deel uitmaak van die nuwe EU-regulasies, word hierdie alles as verpakkingstipes gesien. Nou, wat dek die EU-verpakkingsreëls? Hulle het 'n verpakking in verskillende groeperings gaan sit. Hulle kyk na primêre verkoopsverpakking wat in direkte kontak met die produk is en vir ons is dit nogals belangrik want ons verpakkingsmateriaal is baie keer in direkte kontak en ons produk is gesien as voedsel. So daar's baie spesifieke regulasies wat die EU daaromtrent het. Dan is daar sekondêre gegroepeerde verpakking. Dit is ons kartonne wat is byvoorbeeld ons bulk uitvoere in doen, ons open display kartonne. Daar's tersiêre vervoerverpakking wat ons pallette uitmaak en dan ja, ons gewoonlik ons plastiese verpakking of dan selfs daai stukkie labels wat op die vrugte geplak moet word, maar gaan nou daarby kom. So die EU het verskillende doelwitte met hulle verpakkingsreëls en die eerste een is om verpakkingsafval te verminder. So hulle gaan ons druk om al hoe minder verpakking te gebruik en om onnodige enkelgebruik verpakking te gebruik en dan om oplossings te kry om verpakking weer en weer te gebruik. En dit gaan veral vir ons van toepassing wees op ons paletbasisse. Dan wil hulle ook herwinning verbeter. So ons verpakking moet ontwerp wees om te herwin, om te recycle. Ek dink die meeste van ons plastiese verpakking is reeds herwinbaar, maar ons gaan aan die Europese standaarde moet voldoen. So aanlyn is daar 'n baie oulike stukkie gereedskap wat jy kan gebruik. Dit is op Recyclaas. Dit is die Europese recyclers se webblad beskikbaar. Dit is 'n gratis stukkie gereedskap wat jy kan gebruik om jou verpakkingsmateriaal te gaan oplaai en te gaan kyk of dit voldoen aan die EU se herwinningsregulasies op hierdie stadium. Ons weet daardie reëls kan nog verander, maar dit is 'n baie lekker tooltjie om te gebruik om te kyk of jy alreeds voldoen. Dan gaan hulle ook hulle sorteringsetikette harmoniseer en dit is om vir hulle verbruikers in die EU te help om verpakking in die regte sorteringskanale te gooi vir herwinning. So ons gaan op 'n stadium klein piktogramme op ons verpakking moet druk of QR codes moet gebruik. Ek gaan nou daarby kom. En dan baie belangrik vermindering van kommerwekkende of problematiese stowwe, die sogenaamde SOC's, waarin ons reeds nou teen 12 Augustus moet voldoen in ons verpakking. Dan 'n ander doelwit is die gebruik van primêre grondstowwe in die vervaardiging van verpakking te verminder. So hulle gaan baie binnekort, ek dink is teen 2030 as ek nou reg onthou, vir ons vereis dat ons reeds herwonne materiaal in ons plastiese verpakking moet gebruik en dat ons verpakking moet minimaliseer. So al hierdie doelwitte en die reëlings wat hier uitkom, die reëls hiervan is verpligtend vir ons. Jy sal nie na die EU kan uitvoer as jy nie aan hierdie reëls voldoen nie. En die verantwoordelikheid om te bewys dat ons aan hierdie reëls voldoen, val op hierdie stadium by ons uitvoerders. En Natasha gaan baie mooi net nou vir ons deur daai dokumente help worstel om te kyk hoe ons daaraan voldoen. So die belangrikste nuwe vereistes vir ons om al te voldoen is die kommerwekkende of problematiese stowwe, die SOC's, wat ons nie meer in ons verpakking moet hê nie of baie lae vlakke daarvan mag hê. Ons verpakking moet ontwerp wees vir herwinning. Ons gaan herwonne plastiekinhoud in ons plastiese sakke of pannets of wat ons ook al moet gebruik. Van ons verpakking gaan komposteerbaar of biologies afbreekbaar moet wees. ons verpakking gaan geminimaliseer moet wees, maar ek dink ons bedryf voldoen nogals redelik hieraan, want ons probeer ons payload in ons houers soveel as moontlik maksimeer. So ons probeer om meer vrugte en minder lug uit te voer. Dan ook die vermindering van oormatige verpakking. Ons gaan baie mooi moet kyk, hoe is al die verpakking wat ons gebruik in 'n karton, is dit nodig? Dan is daar hergebruikstekens vir vervoerverpakking spesifiek van toepassing op ons paletbasisse. En dan etikettering vir herwinning, waarop ek ook gaan stil staan, en dan gaan daar beperkings wees op sekere verpakking, spesifiek op ons kleiner verpakkings, ons prepacks, wat minder as 1,5 kilogram weeg. So as ons nou eers gaan stil staan by die vereistes vir kommerwekkende stowwe in ons verpakking, dan is dit spesifiek nou van toepassing op PFAS, dis per- en polyfluoralkylverbindings en BPA, bisfenol A, spesifiek in ons plastiese verpakkings. Nou, daar gaan ook in die toekoms ook gaan ons moet kyk na swaar metale, daar spesifieke swaar metale waarop gefokus moet word. Nie net dat daai swaar metale nie oordra op jou vrugte nie, maar hulle wil ook weet, tydens herwinning, weet hulle nie wat om met daai swaar metale te maak, wat uit die verpakking kom nie. So ons gaan baie streng beperkings wees op swaar metale in verpakking. So teen 12 Augustus hierdie jaar gaan ons aan hierdie nuwe vereistes moet voldoen en gaan jy tegniese dokumentasie moet aanheg om te bewys dat jy aan hierdie vereistes voldoen. So vir PFAS is daar minimum konsentrasies waaraan jy moet voldoen in jou plastiese verpakking en wat jy in die tegniese dokumentasie gaan moet aandui. Vir swaar metale het dit op hierdie stadium betrekking op lood, kadmium, kook en heksavalente krom, wat nie 100 mg per kilogram verpakkingsmateriaal mag oorskry nie. Hulle sê ook dat hulle in die toekoms nog swaar metale by hierdie lysie gaan voeg. En dan BPA mag glad nie in ons plastiese verpakking voorkom nie, en dit mag ook nie, dit word partykeer in ink gebruik, waarmee ons druk op ons verpakkingsmateriaal. BPA mag ons glad nie in die ink voorkom nie.
It's also important to note that you don't have to memorize all these numbers. They will be in the template. So that's easy for you to track and verify this information. And the substances of concerns are really taken quite seriously, because if they have health impact and they're migrating into the fruit, that really is of concern to us. So thanks, Mariana, for putting this on a slide.
Yeah. Dis reg, ja, dit het ongelooflike gesondheidsnadele. So as ons gaan stil staan by ontwerp vir herwinning, teen 2030 moet alle pakmateriaal, ook meeste komposteerbare verpakking wat vereis word, ontwerp wees vir herwinning. Nou, herwinbaarheid sal volgens prestasiegrade beoordeel word, A, B of 'n C. As minder as 70% van jou pakmateriaal nie herwinbaar is nie, sal jy dit nie in die EU mag invat nie. Baie streng reël. En dan saamgestelde verpakking met swak herwinbaarheid, soos byvoorbeeld wat partykeer in ons MAP sakke, Modified Atmosphere Packaging, gebruik word, waar daar 'n samestelling van plastiese materiaal is. Daar sal afvalbestuursfooie gehef word op daardie verpakking. So as ons kyk na herwonne plastiekinhoud, ons gaan verpligte vlakke van herwonne plastiek moet gebruik teen 2030 en selfs 'n hoër persentasie teen 2040. En hierdie herwonne plastiek moet van naverbruikers plastiekafval gemaak word en dit moet natuurlik voedselveilig wees. Nou die EU het nog nie vir ons 'n standaard gegee waaraan ons moet voldoen nie en wat is 'n tipe plastiese verbindings ons mag gebruik nie. So dit sal hulle nog aan ons bekend maak, maar ons moet baie bewus wees hiervan. Dan sal daar vryskelding wees vir herwonne plastiekmateriaal waar jou plastiese komponent minder as 5% van die totale gewig uitmaak en vir komposteerbare verpakking. En dan gaan plastiese vervaardigers hul gemiddelde waardes van gebruik van herwonne plastiek per verpakkingsformaat per vervaardigingsaanleg per jaar moet verklaar in die toekoms. So as ons kyk na hierdie herwonne plastiese inhoud, is hierdie deel vir ons van toepassing op voedselverpakking, waar PET 'n groot komponent van jou verpakking uitmaak. PET word gewoonlik in pannets gebruik, gaan 30% van jou panne teen 2030 uit reeds herwonne materiaal moet bestaan en teen 2040 met 50% van daardie pannet uit reeds herwonne materiaal moet bestaan. Waar dit 'n minimale komponent is, soos in ons low density en high density polyethylene sakke, 10% van daai sakke gaan teen 2030 uit reeds herwonne materiaal moet bestaan en 25% van daai sakke teen 2040 uit reeds herwonne materiaal. Ekskuus. As ons kyk na komposteerbare materiaal, waar dit vir ons van toepassing is op hierdie PLU stickertjies wat op ons vrugte gebruik moet word vir die EU. Dit gaan teen 12 Februarie 2028 moet hierdie plakkertjies ten minste industrieel komposteerbaar wees. Daar is egter EU-lidlande soos Frankryk wat wil hê dat dit reeds tuis komposteerbaar moet wees teen 12 Februarie 2028. So ook indien komposteerbare materiaal vir ander verpakking gebruik word, gaan dit ook herwinbaar moet wees. Dan minimalisering van verpakking. Verpakking se gewig en volume moet teen 1 Januarie 2030 tot die minimum beperk word, sonder om funksionaliteit te benadeel, en dubbele wande, vals bodems en onnodige lae verpakkingsmateriaal moet word geteken, en dit is wat teen 1 Januarie 2030 tot die minimum beperk moet word. Dan vermindering van oormatige verpakking, so leë ruimte in verpakking moet teen 12 Februarie 2028 beperk word en teen 1 Januarie 2030 mag 'n gegroepeerde vervoer en e-handelsverpakking nie meer as 50% leë ruimte bevat nie. Dan die hergebruik van vervoerverpakking, dit het nou betrekking op paletbasisse, opvoubare plastiese kratte, kartonne, rakkies, plastiese kratte en dan ek het nog ander formate wat ons nie regtig gebruik nie, maar ons gaan vrystelling kry vir kartonvervoerverpakkings, wat al ons display kartonne, ons kartonne wat ons gebruik om ons vrugte in te pak, gaan vrygestel wees, as ook enkel gebruik plastiek paletbande en paletomhulsels, maar paletbasisse gaan herbruikbaar moet wees en hulle sal nog daardie standaarde aan ons bekend maak. Dan sorteeretikette. Verpakking moet teen 12 Augustus 2028 geharmoniseerde sorteeretikette of piktogramme dra, en die EU sal hierdie piktogramme wat ons moet gebruik op ons verpakking teen 12 Augustus bekend maak. Die etikette moet dan aandui in watter afvalstroom die verpakking na gebruik moet beland, sodat dit reg gehersirkuleer of gerecycle kan word. Dan moet verpakking ook teen 1 Januarie 2030 verklaar of hulle van hierdie verbindings bevat wat kommerwekkend is. En dan hierdie sorteeretikette kan of piktogramme wees, hierdie visuele etikette, of dit kan QR-kodes wees. Dan beperkings op sekere verpakkingsformate. Nou lees nogals 'n belangrike een vir ons kleiner verpakkings wat minder as 1,5 kg weeg. Hulle gaan teen Januarie 2030 gaan enkel gebruik plastiese materiaal op hierdie verpakkings verbied word. So jy sal glad nie plastiese verpakking op hierdie klein prepacks kan gebruik nie, tensy vrystelling toegestaan word. En ek glo, Natasha, as ek reg verstaan, moet dit deur die retailers in die EU gedryf word om vrystelling vir ons te gee vir hierdie prepacks. As ons kyk na die tydlyn van die EU verpakkingsregulasies, dan moet ons teen 12 Augustus hierdie jaar stowwe met risiko of hierdie sogenaamde SOC's vir PFAS en BPA in die tegniese dokumente moet aandui. Teen 2027 moet leerruimte in verkoopsverpakking tot die minimum beperk word en ons verwag 'n EU-standaard vir minimalisering en ook riglyne oor die omvang van verbodsbepalings op veral daai prepacks. Dan 2028 moet daardie PLU plakkertjies teen 12 Februarie komposteerbaar wees, ten minste industrieel komposteerbaar. En sorteeretikette moet op die verpakking aangebring word of as piktogramme of as QR-kodes. En dan verwag ons die EU-kriteria en die metode vir ontwerp vir herwinning. Teen 2029 moet hergebruiksetikette op verpakking aangedui word wat hergebruik moet word, soos byvoorbeeld op die paletbasisse. En dan teen 2030 skop daar 'n hele klomp verpligtinge in, soos die minimalisering van verpakking, die leerruimteverhouding wat aangedui moet word, die aanduiding van stowwe van kommer, die verbodsbepalings, die op die prepacks en dan die ontwerp vir herwinning teen 1 Januarie moet ons aan daardie herwinningsbepalings voldoen. En dan moet ook die herwonne plastiekinhoud van voedselkontakmateriaal moet aan voldoen word.
So I think what's important there with the 2030 deadline is that we're going to get there as and when the EU provides the standards, the methodologies, the testing methodologies, etc. We will put these requirements together in a very palatable fashion for our palm and stone industries. So you're going to get the help and support you need along the way. And we're wanting to build this resilience and the readiness for compliance with the EU PPWR. Thanks, Mariana.
Goed, so as ons kyk na tendense in verpakkingsinnovasie, dan moet ons beslis fokus op die uitskakeling van onnodige of problematiese verpakking. 'n Materiaalverskuiwing hê na herwonne plastiek, biogebaseerde plastiek, monomateriale, nie 'n kombinasie van verskillende plastiese materiale in 'n sak nie, papiergebaseerde verpakking en dan komposteerbare verpakking vir verpligte toepassings. Hergebruik vir vervoerverpakking beslis vir ons paletbasisse en dan maatreëls om versameling, sortering en herwinning te verhoog. So ontwerp vir herwinning volgens die EU se riglyne baie belangrik. En dan ook het hulle hierdie omkeerbare logistiekprogram wat hulle wil inbring. Dis 'n deposito stelsel sodat jy byvoorbeeld geld terugkry as jy sekere pakmateriaal gaan teruggee by die winkelgroepe. So, die voldoeningsvereistes en hier gaan Natasha vir ons nou baie mooi help. Ons moet tegniese dokumentasie saamstuur met elke besending vrugte wat uitgaan en 'n verklaring van voldoening. Nou, hierdie tegniese dokumentasie moet sekere inligting bevat. Die verklaring van voldoening moet vir 5 jaar bewaar word, beslis deur die retailgroep in die EU. Dan moet spesiale aandag aan die volgende gegee word, die herwinbaarheid volgens bestaande standaarde, en hier verwys ek julle graag na Recyclass se aanlyn stukkie gereedskap wat jy kan gebruik om te sien of jy reeds voldoen, en dan om hierdie PFAS en BPA uit ons plastiese verpakking en ook ons ink te kry. Belangrik is dat die handelsmerk-eienaar uiteindelik die verantwoordelikheid dra, en in ons geval is dit ons uitvoerders. So baie belangrik dat hulle baie mooi aandag gee aan hierdie vereistes. As ons kyk na die vereistes en hoe die vloei van inligting gaan werk, so die verskaffers van roumateriaal vir die vervaardiging van verpakking gaan inligting aan die vervaardigers verskaf. En die verpakkingsvervaardigers gaan weer hierdie bylaag 7 of die tegniese dokumentasie aan ons uitvoerders verskaf. Ons het baie goeie raad gekry uit verskillende oorde is dat daar 'n aanspreeklikheidsklausule in jou ooreenkoms met jou verskaffers aangebring moet word, sodat as daar 'n eis van die EU kom, wat betrekking het op die verpakking, dat jy kan teruggaan en gaan kyk wie die verantwoordelike persoon was of maatskappy was wat nie die korrekte inligting verskaf het nie. Want die eise kan baie groot wees of vrugte kan net verbied word om die EU binne te gaan wat baie groot kostes kan inhou. Soos ek gesê, die verskaffers van roumateriaal gaan inligting aan die vervaardigers verskaf. Die vervaardigers gaan die tegniese dokumentasie opstel wat aan die uitvoerders verskaf word. Die uitvoerders gaan hierdie tegniese dokumentasie saam met 'n verklaring van voldoening aan die EU-invoerder verskaf. Dis ook 'n goeie plan om hierdie inligting vir 5 jaar beskikbaar te hou by die uitvoerder. Die uitvoerder gaan dan ook baie seker moet maak dat die verpakking reg geëtiketeer is in die toekoms, dat dat dan al die EU se verpakkingsvereistes voldoen word. Die EU-invoerder gaan seker maak dat die plastiese materiaal wat vanaf ons na hulle toe gaan aan die reëls voldoen. Hulle gaan ook hierdie dokumentasie vir 5 jaar beskikbaar hou by hulle. As hulle gaan herverpak, as hulle ons vrugte gaan herverpak, gaan hulle tegniese dokumentasie en ook hierdie verklaring van nakoming aan die EU moet verskaf en hulle gaan dit byderhand moet hou en moet verseker dat dit aan die EU regulasies voldoen. So die tegniese dokumentasie gaan Natasha nou met ons deurgaan en ook die verklaring van nakoming. En dan het ek net hier aan die einde van my praatjie vir julle 'n opsomming gegee teen wanneer aan watter vereistes voldoen moet word. En julle kan die praatjie gaan aflaai op ons webblad en seker maak wanneer aan wat voldoen moet word. En dan is daar 'n paar bronne van inligting wat ek gebruik het wat nogals baie handig was vir my en wat ek en Natasha ook nogals baie gebruik. Ek wil tog vir julle 'n baie oulike dokument wys wat Agri-Info beskikbaar gemaak het, spesifiek oor PFAS en BPA, vrae wat mense het en antwoorde daarop, wat ek dink ook vir julle van waarde sal wees, waar julle nou moet kyk dat julle verpakkingsmateriaal daarin voldoen. Julle kan dit op ons webblad
It's on the website. I'll show you where it is now.
Okay. Goed. Natasha, dan
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you. I'd really like to know if the presentation in Afrikaans has really helped. It is in English on the website as well, so you're welcome to access it. Actually, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to show you exactly where you can find the information on the template, on the regulations, any kind of information that you need on the paper packaging side. I'll show that to you now. So firstly, get onto our Footprint webpage. If you haven't visited it before, it's got a lot of resources for you to use. So the first thing you need to do is scroll down. You would find our strategic vision. And if you can just maybe close that, So you'd find the strategic vision, and at the bottom, we've got these focus areas. So on the plastics and packaging waste page, if you click on that, you will find a nice little preamble about the annexures of declaration, the declaration of conformity, and the technical document in terms of the EU PPWR. This is a 12th of August deadline. So this document, you'd find the template in this page or on this link. Agri-Info's presentation, which includes everything about the EU PPWR timeline, the requirements, the articles, etc., is in English. And Mariana, what she's just presented was just a summary of that that's applicable to us, and she's translated it into Afrikaans, and her presentation is also on that link. And then the substances of concerns, the PFAS and the BPA guideline that she's just shown you is also on the site. So if you want to get to the template, okay, actually, before we get to the template, I want to show you the actual annexures in the EU PPWR. So this regulation is on the website. You can also find links to it on our articles. We've written quite a lot about it. And if you scroll all the way, you could see like right down to the bottom, you'll find all the annexures. So the annexures we're talking about there's no page numbers, so annexures 7 and 8. Annexure 7 just talks about the technical document that needs to be providing all this technical information. And I have put together a template which we will go through all the requirements and how it refers to the other articles so that you don't have to scroll up and down looking for what it means, etc. It can be quite mind-boggling. And then Annexure 8 is essentially the declaration to say, I'm a package manufacturer. This is what I know is in the document. These are the requirements. These are my references. This is my business details, etc. So these two annexures have easily been aligned to what we've put together now with the templates, which you will find again on our website. I've just been there. And all you have to do is just click. All you have to do is click on this download the template page. So you have the liberty of filling it online and then downloading it, or you can print it out and fill it in manually. So it is an interactive document where you can fill in the information in online as well. So essentially, I've started with part 1 being the declaration, which is Annexure 8, because it's the less information that you need to put in. But it essentially gives a very good idea of who you are, what packaging materials you're referring to. So it's really important to fill every field out. Obviously, there's no logo on this page because it's not a document that is legally binding. It's here as a template. It's just taken the information from the EU PPWR Annexure 7 and 8, aligned it with the articles, and put in a format that's readily and easily documentable by our palm and stone fruit industry. So you can fill in the information, as much information as you have, and as we go along, you will probably get better at this. So I know it feels daunting right now, but this is very easy. I would love to know how user-friendly the format is. If there's anything you think we've missed out, we've never compiled a technical document or a declaration of conformity before, but we've put this together after much consultation with relevant people to help you. So this is really something we're quite proud of, and we're really, really very happy to help you in this regard. You can also have a definition of what a manufacturer and a producer is. And just remember that the exporter's responsibility is to ask suppliers for this information. If you don't get this information from your suppliers, it's going to impact your consignment reaching the EU as of the 12th of August this year. So again, all the information that is needed in terms of the conformity, the standards, who your EU representative is, and then you sign this as the company that is sending the fruit through to the EU. Now, part 2, which is a little more dense, has got all the technical information that you need to provide. So this is really important. I'd like to spend at least 5 minutes going through them. There's basically 11 requirements the last time we looked. And obviously, as and when the regulations get updated, we will then update this form as well. So please be aware that this is a living document because the EU is going to provide more information as we go along. We will have to update the templates. The link that you have to the regulations will be updated automatically. So this template that we have is a snapshot for now, and we will update it as we go along. So essentially, the first column just talks about the requirement. The second column just gives a little bit more detail as to what that requirement means. And then the third column is for you to, as a checklist for you, to say that you've got the information, it's been provided to you, you're aware of X, Y, and Z. If you did not get the information, why? So it helps you to test your compliance in this regard. And then the last column is essentially any kind of references that you have, any labs that you've used, any specific methodology that you've used. And this is just to track where we are in terms of processes, methodologies, infrastructure, etc., and how that may or may not evolve over the next couple of years. The second element, Mariana spoke about it, And again, we've linked it to where it relates to the articles in the regulation, so you don't have to do that. So the heavy metals of concern are listed, and there's minimum requirements for them. You need to verify and prove that your packaging does not exceed that. And you need to put in any kind of technical reference numbers. You don't have to send or submit actual test results, etc. That's not what they're looking for. But the most important thing is that you have tested for it. You've used a methodology that is required for that specific analysis, and you have that information on hand. The third one, Marianne also spoke about the PFAS. There is a guideline. The limits are also listed here. A BPA compliance, very critical. No packaging with BPA in it will be accepted from the 12th of August. Actually, the PFAS requirement is already from the 12th of August in place, and I think the BPA is already in place.
It's 20 July.
Yes, it's already in place. So, yeah, so this is important. No BPA in any of your packaging, and you need to provide proof that there isn't any kind of BPA in the glue, the ink, the packaging, the coating, etc. The fifth area is the substances of concern. And we talked about that. We talked about the heavy metals, but there could be other things that are added that could leach out onto the fruit. And there must be some kind of verification that this has been tested for, and there's no concern in terms of human health impact or any residue on the fruit from the packaging. The sixth item is around recycle design assessment, and this is more to test the recycled content. Mariana spoke about that a bit, and the information is in the document. It's up to you to provide or understand how this is tested at different laboratories from the supplier so that you get the correct information. And then the recycled content in the packaging, there were specific requirements that Mariana had talked about, the 60%, the 50%, etc. So these will come into play from 2028 onwards. But it's actually nice to know if there's currently any recycled content in the packaging and what it is, etc., and how have you tested for them. Obviously, with the EU, they will tell us what methodologies would suffice for the testing of certain parameters like recycled content. So we wait for those standards, but for now, it doesn't hurt in us understanding and finding out what is in our packaging altogether. Yeah, number 8 is on the label, marking, and information requirements. This is really critical. So especially when and the next one also refers to this, when you talk about 100% recyclable or completely green or 100% compostable, what validated requirements or what validated tests that you have to verify those claims. So it's really important that these kind of wording on the environmental claims are really understood, how it's being labeled on the packaging and what verification methods there are for that, because the EU will require that. And they will also, in terms of alignment with Article 11 and 12, we need to know exactly how the items are photographed or produced or put onto your sorting materials. And they have to actually be in correspondence and alignment with what's coming with the labeling in the next couple of years. But if you have something on already, how does those symbols actually appear onto the packaging, and where are they on the packaging? And then number 10 is on the reusable packaging, and this is nothing to do with the single-use plastics. That's a whole animal on its own. But for now, if your packaging is reusable, you have to show that there is a durability to the materials and that there is document that shows that it can be put back into the network for reuse. So this is really important. And then the last one is on the biodegradability and compostability. As we said, there will be composting requirements, etc., as we go along. But for now, if there's any kind of labeling, or if your product is biodegradable or compostable, it needs to be verified in terms of the testing methodologies that have verified it to be biodegradable or compostable. So this is just a suite of information that's needed on the technical documentation. And then the declaration of conformity is to say, we have crossed all these dotted the I's and crossed the T's in terms of what is required with the technical document. And this is the best information we have right now. It has been verified, and we are hereby saying we will conform to the requirements of the 12th of August. Really important to note, firstly, the documents must be retained by the importer for a minimum number of years of 5 years. There are no exceptions to any of this. So even if you've done tests before and you provided information before, this information that is needed is as of the 12th of August onwards. So please really urge all our exporters to get to suppliers, get to your manufacturers, get these documents together. I know we don't have a lot of time, but just get the ball rolling. This template is here, use it, and let it guide you in terms of what is needed. Other than that, the packaging, everything that's on your pallet needs to have its specifications. We need to have a technical documentation. If it's a punnet, you need to know exactly what's in the punnet. If it's any kind of the component that's on the pallet, every little thing needs to have a technical documentation to go with it. And I spoke about the retaining of the information. So this is just the template which is on the website, and you're welcome to access it, use it, download it, etc. Lastly, it's not legally binding. So if you want to add anything to it, please go ahead. We would really appreciate some feedback in this regard.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mariana, I'm not sure if we have any questions on the chat. You can just pull it up there.
Can I open it now?
There we go. Okay, so we do have, are they more right at the top? Let's just try that. So from my side, I'm actually done. We're now into the Q&A session and we've got like 5 minutes left. So let's delve into this. Baie dankie vir die Afrikaans. Ag, dis 'n plesier. Paula had talked about Natasha. Thank you very much for the webinar. CGA is also tracking the PPWR. Some of the questions we've had from the stakeholders that may be applicable to this group as well. Number one, is testing for PFAS and BPA a prerequisite or only required in certain cases? Example, if the packaging supplier and manufacturer of the final product declares that they do not use these actives, is it still needed to test for them in the final product? I think from my side, there needs to be some kind of verification that there isn't in it. And I think the declaration on its own is a trust of good faith that you don't have it. So there must be some kind of declaration to say that it is BPA and PFAS free, or if it has those limits to the PFAS, we need to test to see that those limits are within those requirements. Number two, can our local labs test for PFAS and BPA in packaging? I think they are. There are some labs that are doing it. The question is, are those methodologies and equipment the same that the EU will use for their testing? So at some point, we need to have alignment between their methodologies and equipment versus ours, and there needs to be a so-called harmonization and standardization of those methodologies. So I think
at this point in time,
yes. So it's a matter of contacting suppliers and finding out where they test their BPA and PFAS. And I think there are labs available and doing this already. Number three, it was mentioned during the presentation now that should the paperwork be sent with each consignment or packaging batch?
Consignment, yeah.
It's with the consignment. Obviously, if nothing changes, that document will still be the same. But as soon as there's any change to the consignment packaging, then there needs to be some kind of revisit to those documents. But it goes with the consignment and throughout the value chain, of course. The next one, baie insiggewende sessie.
Baie insiggewende sessie.
Insiggewende sessie. That's me with my Indian accent. But thank you so much. I'm really so pleased that you've enjoyed the session. And I think it really does help when there's the content being provided in 2 languages for your benefit. And all the information is on our website in English and in Afrikaans. And if you need any further assistance, you're welcome to contact us. More questions. Can you please show us again where on the website to find the documents? Cool. I don't mind at all. So if you go to www.hoortgrow/footprint, you'd come to our website, and then let me show you. Let's go share again. Open it up on this side. Okay, so let me share it quickly before we end. So basically, you go onto our website. This is taking some time to open. Okay, so it's www.hortgrow.co.za/footprint. And then you just navigate to the bottom of the page. There's a bit of a lag there on the screen. There's a strategic vision of the resource management and sustainability portfolio, and you go further down. You would actually get our webinars here. Watch videos. All the webinars will be recorded here and takes you directly to that link. The focus areas is where you'd find it. So scroll down to plastics and packaging waste. Click on it, and you will get access to the templates that are and the presentation, the document, actually, the presentations on this page. All right, so the URL is also on the top if you want to take that down or screenshot it for your reference later. Okay, so I think that would be quite helpful. Are there any bio-based plastics available in use in the deciduous fruit industry? Is it not there as promising research? If not, is there any promising research in that area? We've got the expert right here. So I think Mariana can allude to that response.
Alisa, there is, and we have tested it. It's not really something that our industry is taking up because it's very expensive packaging, and also because it starts to break down during storage. So you can use it this season, you can buy it in, you can use it, and if there's any leftover packaging, bio-based plastic packaging for your next season, you have to store it very well and under very specific conditions so that you don't get any breakdown. So at this point in time, our industry focuses on recyclable plastic material. Also regarding the compostable packaging, it's the same problem. It's expensive. It's really expensive, and also it's difficult to keep it from one season to another. So yeah, I know for the PLU labels we have to use compostable labels now, but yeah, it's an expensive type of packaging.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Elisa. From Jean, is there any printing on packaging material required by the 12th of August 2026? I don't think there is.
No.
Yeah, there isn't. Oh, and look, Excel is online with us. That's wonderful to have you on board. So Excel says the European Commission is preparing a PFAS protocol that will provide additional guidance to comply with PFAS limits, including a methodology for testing. So this should be published in October this year. So after the limits start to apply, obviously from the 12th of August. It is still unsure whether this methodology should mainly be used by the EU component authorities checking that the packaging is compliant, or if the packaging suppliers have to test their packaging, even if no PFAS was used to manufacture it. So we will get some guidance and clarity from Excel, from CoLead, and from AgriInfo in that regard. So thanks so much, Excel, for being here and clarifying that. Really appreciate your help throughout this entire process, and happy to share with CGA and the other fruit commodity groups as well. So thanks. I think that's it from our side.
I just want to go back to Jean's question regarding the printing of the pictograms for recycle, in which recycle stream you should put your packaging. It's only for February or August 2028 that we need to have QR codes or the pictograms on the packaging. Not now.
Not now.
Yeah.
So there is comfort in not everything needing to be done now, but it's a journey towards 2030 and the compliance thereof. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really a wonderful experience for us to work on these documents and deliver the information to you. If there are further topics of for the webinar that you'd like specifically for you, please do let us know. We would love to hear feedback on the template and this webinar. Please share the webinar link with others who may benefit from it. I'm sure not everybody could join online, but it will be recorded. It is recorded, and it will be on our social media platform and on our YouTube channel. You saw where to access it on the website. So from me, Natasha and Mariana and our technical team at HortGrow, thank you so much for joining us, and let us continue to journey along to leave a very sustainable future and a legacy. Thank you.
Thank you.